Okay, the fourth question, which is the question that ranked second among the 500, is coming from Joycelyn Chin on straitstimes.com. Many average Singaporeans, PRs, view the president as a powerless figure with no significant value add despite a huge paycheck. How will you change this image?
Well, I think the first approach is really to remove the misconception that it is powerless. It is a president that has got real power in 5 areas specified by the Constitution. Right? So he is an independent auditor. He is an advocate for certain moral issues, moral power, center of moral power, and he is also a gatekeeper that will protect your reserves. So these are important roles. You don't expect him to jump up and down or go to the football field to do all these things. But it's important role. He may be sitting in the office, but it's important role. 3 roles: independent auditor, advocate, and gatekeeper. And the government, whichever minister, whether it's law or whatever, is not doing the institution a favor when it says that the position of presidency is powerless. The next part of it, the huge paycheck, I have answered that. It should be pegged not to the CEO's pay, but to the pay of the lowest civil servant.
Well, I look at the president's office as able to make an important contribution to the people of Singapore, and that role is through being the voice of the people, hearing what are their main concerns, evaluating, summarizing them with the help of other concerned citizens and bringing them to the government and working constructively with the government to find better solutions. If the people see that the president can do this, then they will certainly think the president is very useful and very influential. And I want to achieve that.
I think the veto powers of the president speaks for itself, that he is quite powerful, because he's going to look after two important aspects, which I'm sure you all are aware of. But there are some I would call inherent powers of the president, which I've mentioned during our earlier on debate. For example, he must be consulted, he can report wrongdoings, right? He can encourage all these social activities. All these are, and warning, these are all not entrenched in the Constitution. But I think these are also very, very important inherent powers to a head of state.
The president is not a powerless figure. The president is a head of state of our nation. He represents our country both domestically and internationally. Constitutionally, the president is able to exercise a certain specific power spelled out within the Constitution, for example, with regard to our reserves. On top of that, the president has influence and moral authority if he does his job and conducts himself well. And I think in that case, the president can do a great deal. He's certainly not a powerless figure.
Thank you. For the final question, it's free for all. Whoever wants to be the first may do so. The same rule applies, 1 minute. So this is the question that has received the most number of votes, and it comes from Juliana Ho via email. What would you do if you disagreed strongly with a policy that the cabinet has endorsed? Who would like to go first? Sure.
Now, the issue has to be one, how important it is, and what is the level of disagreement. It should not be just my personal views, but it should be the views of large numbers of people. If large numbers of people express a view, and I see that the government policy is not in line, I will want to express this. I will express this strongly to the government, privately, of course, and if necessary, in public. But it has to be an issue that is shared. Now, it also has to be within the purview of the president. What is the purview? Those are the specific constitutional duties. But I include that the general welfare of the people, upholding of justice and the law.
Actually, I answered that question earlier on also, but just to summarize it, I can only give a warning as a president because it's not within my powers. I don't have veto powers. I think with that warning, it is still within the Constitution to actually tell the cabinet, look, this I don't agree with you. If you do it, at the end of the day, you have to answer to the electorate.
Let me just say that the President has access to the Cabinet and to the Prime Minister. I'm sure that a wise President will be able to use his channels of communication and access to communicate his views. And if he has serious reservations about a certain policy, he will warn the Prime Minister, he will give his views. Of course, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet will make the final decision. That is their responsibility and their prerogative under the Constitution. But the President can state why he disagrees, why he thinks this is wrong, how it could be made better. And if the Prime Minister is wise, sensible, if he respects the President, I'm sure these views will be taken into account.
Well, my first approach is always to talk it over with the Prime Minister. He is a reasonable man. He has got a following. Obviously, he is much respected by his cabinet members, by his MPs, just as much as the President, elected directly by the people, has the respect of the people. Starting point, always to talk and to argue. And disagreement shall never be seen as confrontation. I may disagree passionately over issues, but I will not confront. We talk. And it will not be a surprise if I come out in public. If at the end of the debate of a discourse, I'm used to all these discourses after coffee, as a student, after coffee, after dinner. Always, we talk endlessly, but we always come to a solution. So I'm sure wise counsel will prevail. And at the end of the day, we are all having the interests of Singaporeans at heart. And we will agree, even if we go away not agreeing with the decision that has been taken.